And so there's thousands of frequencies that are programmed in our system that we're running against. And I kind of like to say it's like tuning into your body's like Wi-Fi signals rather than like checking wires and like plumbing, right? It's all helpful. Wi-Fi we can't see all the time. We know it's there. We know it's working. But with functional labs, again, still I'm a fan and they can be definitely used in conjunction, but it gives us a snapshot of really like what's happening on the physical body, like on a biochemical level, right? Versus like understanding why the body may not be healing or regulating like as it should. And usually those are certain emotional blocks, emotional stress patterns, organ system communication issues, but also how the body responds to pathogens, toxins. That's a huge one. And, oftentimes way before they show up on labs. So that's a little breakdown on what the heck bioresonance is.
Welcome to Hopeful and Wholesome, the show where ambitious women come home to their bodies. I'm your host, Hope Pedraza, and I'm a functional practitioner, human design guide, and expert on all things energy, and your partner in decoding the language of your body. This is your space to reconnect with your body's wisdom, reclaim your energy, and rise into alignment in your health, your business, and your life. Because thriving isn't about pushing harder, it's about learning to listen deeper. So let's dive in because your next breakthrough starts right now. Hey y'all, welcome back to Hopeful and Wholesome. Today I have on the show Shannon Salge, and she is a functional nutritionist and bioresonance practitioner who blends bioenergetics, functional testing, and nervous system work to help women heal chronic symptoms at the root, physically, emotionally, and energetically. And we are talking about bioenergetics today, which I love this conversation because since we've had this interview, we've been talking about this a lot on the podcast with some of the things I've brought into my work. So I love this deep dive into bioenergetics and really what it looks like, how it relates to your metabolism, your hormones, your gut, and all of these pieces, and how she weaves in these energetics with the physical piece, and how this really does make a difference with everyone who's tried all the things, but they haven't worked. I love this conversation, this deep dive into bioenergetics. So let's jump in. Today, Shannon.
Hello, good afternoon.
I'm so glad to have you. And I love when I'm able to jam out with some fellow functional practitioners who are bringing in some different modalities into the functional world. So I am really excited to dive into your area of expertise. And I want to start out and just jump right in to have you explain bioenergetics, because this is what you bring into your work and this is really your sole focus now. So can you explain to us what is bioenergetics? What does it do? Why are you using it? And kind of how you got into it?
Yes. So I'm going to first start about how I got into it, because I think this is probably really interesting. If I lead with just bioenergetics, it's really cool, but to understand, especially from like a functional perspective, like why I would get more into this more energetic world. It was kind of a trip. But in a very, very long story short, like I went through, for lack of better words, a spiritual awakening, last year. But I was through, I have gone through my own very unique personal healing journey, went from winning a bodybuilding show to literally being crippled, walking with a cane, unable to get out of bed, riddled with autoimmune issues, gut hormone issues. And I healed them through functional lab testing. And I got really involved with GI map and the HTMA. And, I just fell in love with it. And that's what I shifted my business to, from normal nutrition coaching, fitness coaching to, more hormone, gut, thyroid, adrenal kind of work. And that worked for a while. And then the more and more people you deal with, you're just like, there is so much missing from these, right? And that's why you weave in, human design and, hypnotherapy with this. But I was like, we're just much deeper human beings than just this lab. And, last year I went through, I was a new mom. I had gone through burnout. I was doing a lot of shifts. I was like, why is this feeling out of alignment? I was getting clients' results. Things were working, but I was like, it just didn't feel in alignment anymore because it just felt so like almost clinical and in a box, right? Because I would see people get results and then slide right back. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're doing all of the things, right? And so I added in nervous system work. I brought it. One of my practitioners is a somatic breathwork specialist. We built out a whole nervous system course and it was amazing and it helped. But then I was finding people were just doing it to check it off their to-do list. And, it was like helpful, but they weren't embodying it. And, there's so much more to the human body than just what meets the lab eye or what even meets the macros or the nutrition. And I didn't know what it was. Like, I didn't know bioenergetics at the time per se. I just knew there was something else out there. And so I was actually at a conference with one of my friends who sat next to me. She goes, Shannon, you would geek out over this. I just had a session with this bioenergetic person and you would just love it, because I was getting more into energy work and just all this other jam. And she's like, yeah, you do this like frequency, like water tinctures. And like, I know it sounds weird. I was like, no. Nothing sounds weird to me anymore.
For sure.
I've just been feeling so much better. I was like, tell me about it. The next day, I purchased the equipment. I never looked back, and it shifted my whole business. Like, I was so, it was like the thing where like intuitively I was like, this is what I've been looking for. That merges the functional world with this energetic world, because I was with a lot of energy healers. And believe me, the work that they do is absolutely incredible, but it's hard for people to comprehend. Not that you need to, but when you're dealing with energy, they can't see it, they can't feel it, or they can feel it, but they can't quantify it almost. And so with the equipment, we actually are seeing things, almost quantifying it, like on equipment, on reports and things like that. So it helped that logical brain merge into the energetic side that I think a lot of people knew they needed, but didn't know like a modality to help merge those two together. And also just why I think it hit so hard for me is about 20 years ago, 15 years ago, my sister was in college and had to drop out because she got so severely ill. Nobody could figure it out. We were in Los Angeles at the time, and we went to all of the top doctors there, and even like certain like functional doctors. My mom was always into more, I hate the word, but like more woo-woo kind of work. Yeah. And she found a bioenergetic at the time practitioner. It was a little bit different with the slightly different equipment, but same thing. And in 2 sessions, she was healed, completely gone, fine. And so I knew about it in the back of my head. So when she reactivated that for me, my body remembered, like, I didn't need any convincing. I got on the sales call. He was like, yeah, you want it? I was like, nope, sign me up. You to talk about it. I know that this is the way. And it's been incredible. So that was a little backstory on like how I got into it, because I wanted to get clients quicker results. Don't we all? But I wasn't willing to do it out of alignment with myself, right? I'm not a quick fix kind of person, but I also knew the body could heal quicker if we merged the energetic world with the functional right protocol. And so in essence, this was almost easier. Clients could be taking tinctures. It's almost like a shortcut, like to getting the body results, because really the scans only show up what the body's willing and able to address right now. Right. Instead of like, even when we pull 5 functional labs, we don't know sometimes where to start, and almost always it's going to be nervous system if they're open to it. But, it's like, it can still be complex. And even if we think we know the perfect plan, they could just not react really well to it too. So yeah, I wanted a shortcut, and I wanted to get clients quicker results in integrity with, what I do. And so that's what it kind of does. And so, yeah, but kind of backing up to like what even bioenergetics is. Because it's definitely a new world, and there's different types of bioenergetic testing, and bioresonance is what I do. And I use equipment for it. I have really advanced software that I use where I can build out specific scans. Some people have been like, oh, I've done that before. I just like put my hand on a scanner and just gave me a generic thing, or I just use my voice, and all of that has its own benefit. But I'm going to toot my own horn, and that what we kind of do is just a little bit step further, right? But it's really the study of the body's energetic systems, like things like frequency and resonance, and how our cells communicate and regulate through energy. And that's a big one. That's a big thing I see with clients is their cells, they're doing the right things. Like they're doing, even when we're doing the scans, like they're doing the right things, but their cells aren't communicating properly. And that's something you can't really fix with a supplement. And so instead of looking at chemistry like blood or urine or stool, we're looking at the body's electromagnetic field and how it responds to different frequencies. And so there's thousands of frequencies that are programmed in our system that we're running against. And I kind of like to say it's like tuning into your body's like Wi-Fi signals rather than like checking wires and like plumbing, right? It's all helpful. Wi-Fi we can't see all the time. We know it's there. We know it's working. But with functional labs, again, still I'm a fan, and they can be definitely used in conjunction, but it gives us a snapshot of really like what's happening on the physical body, like on a biochemical level, right? Versus like understanding why the body may not be healing or regulating like as it should. And usually those are certain emotional blocks, emotional stress patterns, organ system communication issues, but also how the body responds to pathogens, toxins. That's a huge one. And, oftentimes way before they show up on labs. So that's a little breakdown on what the heck bioresonance is.
I'm completely fascinated. And unlike you, if I hear something and my intuition is like, yep, that's the thing. Like that's how it was for me with human design and tying into work. It's like, no, that's the thing I need to bring in. So when you're doing these labs, because I really want to kind of geek out on this. So can you explain, okay, if somebody's coming into a session, can you explain so are you doing this remotely? Do they have to be next to you? Can you explain like what the session looks like?
Yes. So really good question. So I do everything virtually. You can do it in person. The equipment, you hold on to the electrodes, and that's how typically you're running a session. When I do things virtually is people send me a hair, nail, or saliva sample. I put that on the test plate along with their name, date of birth, and gender. And that's how I'm running it. So I run all of the scans before I get on a call with a person because it takes me transparently 2 to 3 hours sometimes to put together reports because it's so much information and it's so much trying to figure out like the main overview on what's going on. But we go so deep too. So when we're running the scans, I always run 4 main scans to go over, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I usually get anywhere from 200 to 300 signatures that are coming up because of how I've built out these scans. And they I have something called a root cause scan, right? We talked about, how that word kind of gets thrown around. But it's really on at the root, what is the body asking for? Like, what does it need in order to fix all of the kind of problems? And I will say a lot of times what people put on their intake form and what I find too is very probably the most common thing people tell me is like, I can't hide from the scan. Like, it's like they can tell me one thing, but like their body maybe tells me either a different story, the same story, or a way deeper story than what they have told me, right? And so we're looking at, hundreds of signatures, anything from pathogens, sort of things like parasites, dysbiosis, bacteria imbalances, things like that. Mold exposure is a huge one, right? Lyme, those are things that don't get picked up really well on normal labs, particularly Lyme. Actually, a lot of people get into bioenergetics because of Lyme, because it's that actually picked it up.
That's a tough one.
It's so tough, even from a practitioner standpoint, which is why I find energy work works way better, way quicker. So, heavy metals, right? Those are all things that minerals, hormones, but other things that we see that are a lot deep. Vaccines are a huge problem. And this is not like a forget. It's just our body holds on to a lot of them. And especially if you're a very hard detoxer, it's like our body can hold on to a lot of that kind of metal overload or just, that kind of mess things up for us, right? We've seen that a lot in the last few years. And so just helping the body remember how to not have such an effect of those things. Also emotions, right? We have a huge emotional scan, usually 80 to 90 signatures come up. And this is showing a lot of not only emotions you're going through, but generational as well. And that's a big problem people don't realize because you can't really realize you're holding on to a lot of generational emotional issues that are holding your body back from healing. Right? Certain other things that are really interesting are certain things like miasms, which are like inherited genetic traits that our body, they're like genetic weaknesses that our body's more susceptible to. So, and this nails people. Oh my gosh, it's so funny. It's like, just genetically more susceptible to things like, ADD, ADHD, autoimmune issues, perfectionism tendencies, it's like, for a lot. Right. And so, we look at those things on kind of the root cause scan and the emotional scan. And then we look at supplements. This is fascinating. When I first learned this, honestly, I was like, I dig it, but I don't get it. And that's okay. When I run a supplement or a symptom scan, I'm looking at, does a body need things physically, or do they need a lot of these things energetically? And so instead of taking 30 supplements, like you can get at a lot of traditional practitioners and their bodies, they're emotionally overloaded, their body's overloaded, their liver's like, what the hell? And, we imprint, meaning taking the signatures from the scans and we put it into a tincture. And so we imprint the frequency and the codes of these supplements in there. And then there are certain things that people usually physically need to take as well. It just kind of depends, but the body's going to guide me on what it wants. And that's been another thing too, diving into more homeopathy. Diving more into energetic tinctures instead of just like, I'm going to give you a physical magnesium. Body might not, it might need the energetic signatures of the magnesium, but not the physical right now. And it might need something else to kind of bring it back into alignment. So we look at that. And then we can look into vertebral issues, dental issues. That's a big one too. Dental issues. I mean, you understand the different meridians and different, organ systems that all go in from the mouth to the different organs, and same with vertebral. And so see, are there some imbalances happening in those areas that we can either address energetically or physically? Sometimes I've had clients go into their dentist and just be like, hey, just curious, do you mind looking at these things? Or even their chiropractor. And, sometimes there are issues with that. Like one of my clients had a dead tooth that 3 doctors missed. And, it was like one of her fillings had kind of gotten lifted a little, and there was some decay or something on it. But that was impacting, I don't remember which one. It was somewhere in the back here, her organ and I believe her liver meridians. And
Wow.
she got that out, and suddenly her thyroid issues started dissipating.
Oh, that's crazy.
She no longer was detox. We didn't want to put her on liver, support and things like that. You don't realize the oral microbiome, as well as if we have metal, if we have fillings, even if we had silver fillings that were taken out. I just had a client yesterday that had all these silver. Silver was taken out. Regular, the clear ones are put in, but his body was holding on to a lot of silver. I was like, you didn't mention any fillings on your Instagram. I'm curious. And he's like, oh yeah, well, that's because I took them all out. The body remembers that.
Yeah.
That, right. And then we can dive into specialty scans as well. So I have over 150 specialty scans. So yesterday I was dealing with one where it was she had tinnitus from the COVID vaccine, after the COVID vaccine. So that was kind of a chronic 5-year thing. So we're kind of working on tinnitus. We're working on menopausal hot flashes. We were working on anxiety, as well as all the other things that were coming up. Somebody today was she was in a car accident and started experiencing some neural issues. So we're working a little bit more on neural and brain inflammation, as well as some other issues that are coming up. GI issues are a big one. So I have another client that is parasites, very, very heavy on the parasites, but doesn't ask for anything physically. His body only wanted things energetically, which is really interesting too. So we're doing a lot of tinctures and just a really mild binder and letting the body kind of handle the rest of it, which is fascinating that we can work with energy and not just have to push a ton of supplements, especially when you're sensitive. So yeah, it's fast. And I work with animals, which is really weird.
Oh, that's cool.
I've worked with dogs and cats who have had these chronic ear infections, and after one scan, they went away. After, chronic skin conditions, one scan and it's gone, even after going to 3 specialty vets.
Wow.
So, because we're all energetic beings, I don't talk about the animal stuff a lot because it's, I primarily work with women who, want to work with hormones, gut, weight loss, GI issues, things like that. But you feel better. So
yeah, for sure.
So
That's fascinating. Yeah, that's so fascinating. So what do you, I know this is probably a tough one to answer because you're talking about how many different scans you can run. What do you find are some of the most common energetic things that come up on the scans for people, that energetically they need to clear?
Well, it's hard because all of it is technically energy. And
right.
I know that's what you mean kind of, but it's when I get on a call, especially if a client's been with me for a while, or maybe they've done all the labs before, I'm just so you know, when I'm speaking here, we're speaking in energy. So if something comes up, even a parasitic signature, it doesn't mean you necessarily have that parasite. It means you're resonating energetically with it. And that could be a parasitic person. That could be your body is just very susceptible to a lot of parasitic issues because our integrity of our gut is very low. There's different dilutions that kind of guide us to if something's more physical or energetic, but ultimately it still is energy. But, the biggest breakthroughs I've seen with people are when I talk about the emotional scan. I do start with the physical because it's easier to wean in people.
Yeah.
And it is important. Listen, if you have we'll just say parasite. If you have parasite, it does need to go. It's probably wreaking havoc, right? But it's probably going to come back if you don't do it the right way, And so that stuff's important. Cell integrity, cell communication is really important. You asked about something that's a little more energetic. I see a lot, especially clients that are with our program, with my coaches, and I'm they're doing the right things. This is fire. Why are they not responding? And then when we're doing a scan, it's even the things on the scan we're showing, yes, it's thyroid and it's adrenals, but it's their cells have this thick coating over it. And none of the supplement things can actually get in and penetrate the cells. And so it's getting their cells to actually communicate energetically better because we can give you phosphatidylcholine and maybe, help with the cell health, but it's only going to take you so far.
Right.
And so that's where the tinctures come in really beautifully. But yeah, going through some of the emotional stuff is really huge because
Yeah.
We know it usually talking to a client, especially being a little more intuitive. Like we can sense when there's maybe, but so many people are closed off to that idea that trauma, emotions, perfectionism tendencies are driving a lot of the issues. And so when I bring this up, I'm taking my logical and clinical brain out of it. I'm like, this is what the scan says. It doesn't lie, and really tying these in. And then what I do with certain clients with the emotional scan is I tie it in with German new medicine or Chinese medicine and link it back to their intake and all of their symptoms. So that way we can kind of make some of those correlations. So it's not like, oh yeah, we have a generational issue with your brother or your paternal grandfather's side. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes people cry. A lot of people cry. Oh my God, I didn't realize this was holding me back like so much. Like generational cousin, no information came up for a scan on somebody, and somebody had like a 20-minute breakthrough on this about like this cousin energy and how bad it was and how it's been impacting her and our family. And there was this huge fallout. And it was like, you could feel the release, her body when she talked about that. But it's just weaving those pieces of the puzzle together and knowing it's not just talk therapy or just me I can't really say I'm not a therapist, but it's not just talking through things, which one is healing in and of itself, but two, we imprint all of these signatures into the tincture to help your body remember how to move through it too. Instead of just giving you an adrenal support supplement that just helps lower cortisol, right? It's like, so that's kind of the magic in the pudding, if you will.
Yeah.
It's helping address it, and it's also helping move the body through it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That answer your question.
That answer, yeah. And I think I did mean that's really what I meant. What I meant was the more emotional side of things, and that's the part that always fascinates me the most, because you're right. I think people, let's be honest, we're humans. We want the physical things. Like, I want my hormones to be fixed. I want to not feel bloated all the time. I want to not have a headache. I want, we want the physical, and that's important. But so I think sometimes, because I get that too in my work, like the emotional piece is, I don't want to say a harder sell, because if they're working with me, I don't have to sell them on it, but it's harder to grasp for that analytical mind, like we were talking about before, the analytical mind to grasp, because you can't see them and you can't, so I was more curious about how that shows up. So when you're doing, because that's fascinating to me about the generational thing, when you're running the scans, are you running scans specifically for the generational stuff? So the scan is telling you this person has a cousin issue generationally, like the scan is telling you they have generational trauma?
Yeah. So part of the emotional scan, the way I have it built out is I have it filter through many different things on what's called a causal level. So on a causal, if there's something that's really causing the body to be out of dysfunction, it'll show up. And then other things one by one. And so what I mean by that is I have certain things like feelings creating issues is a big one. Like, what's a main feeling that's creating an issue on the body? That'll pull up at least one thing in my system. Optimizing this certain emotion, I have that come up. Affirmations, I always have everybody have an affirmation. And so out of the hundreds of affirmations, it pulls the one that the body needs to hear the most right now. So if on a causal level, if there's chakras that are out of balance, it'll pull up those certain chakras, but only if that's really causing an issue on like a causal level. But then with the generational stuff, it's part of my scan. It's called GEM, generational emotional mapping. There's certain gems that will come up if the body is asking for it, and it always does, and it always has a lot of them.
I'm sure.
So that's kind of just built in, where it's like it's just kind of part of everything. I don't run a specific generation. Because it all does kind of tie in.
Of course,
to issues. So like yesterday, one of my clients, like she had like an alcoholic father, and had a lot of verbal abuse, and she was like had done the therapy and was like very casually mentioned it in like 2 words on the intake form. And I'm glad she did, because I didn't know, and it was interesting seeing so much of this, this father energy, right? But it was also the emotions she was feeling around shame and around, all these different things. And I was like, do you feel like this is tying back in to this? And she was like, tear, like, yes. Absolutely. So it was interesting weaving it, because the emotional scan only means so much to me. I can help you weave the puzzle, but it's going to mean more to you.
Right.
So that's why I like also getting on a call with people. Like, some people just send a report, and that means if you see 90 signatures, you're like, okay, what? Like, I pull the most important ones out and really try to tie it again back to their symptoms, and also things that I don't think are related and I'm just not sure, and talk through it, because people oftentimes be like, that's not an issue. And I'm like,
right.
Like I had a bee sting show up on the root cause scan for a client the other week, like very heavily. Something in the emotional field, there was a bee sting. And I was like, this could be that she's allergic to a bee. I don't know, but something about a bee sting is causing her body on a causal level to just harbor some sort of inflammatory response or, something. And I was like, were you ever stung by a bee? She's like, no. I was like, do you know anybody that was? She was like, no. And like, we were kind of talking back and forth. And I was like, it had come up strong enough. And on the root cause scanner, I was like, I'm going to ask one more question. I was like, is there any memory that you can remember of anybody getting stung by a bee or anybody, whatever. Long story short, later down the session, she got choked up. She was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. My brother at the time, I was like 7 or 8, got stung by a bunch of bees and had to be transported to the hospital and almost died.
Hey, y'all, we'll get right back to the episode. But first, let me ask you this. You've built a vision that others admire. And you've built something that you're really proud of. But behind the scenes, your body feels like it's lagging behind. It just can't quite catch up to your brilliance and your mission that you have. That late night second wind, the foggy mornings, the hormone shifts, the endless push and forcing. You can't strategize your way out of that. And you already know you don't need more supplements. You don't need another supplement stack. You also don't need another side hustle disguised as self-care because nobody wants to have their health as a side hustle. This is about recalibrating your entire ecosystem. And that's why I created the Quantum Reset, a premium 3-month high-touch healing experience for visionary women who are ready to feel as powerful in their bodies as they do in their business. Inside, we decode your nervous system, your minerals, your hormones. We read your labs like the sacred text that it is, so we have actual answers. And then we pair that with deep energetic recalibration, subconscious release. We use gene keys, we use human design, and true embodied healing. This isn't about fixing burnout, because that's not what we're doing here. This is about becoming the woman whose body is powerful, whose body is completely electric, whose energy, clarity, radiance finally matches the size of her mission. If you know your success isn't meant to cost you your vitality and you're ready for a science-backed, spirit-led reset, then the Quantum Reset is your invitation. So check the link in the show notes or send me a message on Instagram, and let's bring your body back online with your brilliance. Now, let's get back to the show.
And I was like,
wow. And that was still imprinted on her body. That's crazy.
And I was like, well, your body is holding on to some of that trauma, dude. Even though we don't think she's a very express emotion, don't think about it, keep going forward person, right? I was like, your body's still remembering that and it's processed it. And you were young, so it really, you didn't have a lot of time to process it. Didn't know what was happening.
Don't know
but
how, That's wild. And I think that is such a crazy story. And I think that is such a good illustration. Like, we've talked about trauma in so many capacities on this show. And honestly, I feel like I saw somebody post something not too long ago about this because everybody's talking about trauma. Like, I guess that's like the new Gen Z thing. I'm not Gen Z, so I'm older than that. So it's like everybody's talking about trauma. So I feel like it's like, it's just one of those buzzwords that people are so sick of hearing about. But the fact is that we do all experience trauma, big T and little t trauma. But I feel like that story you just shared is such a perfect picture of the little t traumas that we experience throughout our life. When she was a kid and now she's an adult, but this experience when she was 7, that didn't even happen to her, happened to her brother, made an imprint on her energetic body. Like, that is crazy. I think just knowing that piece can explain so much to people. Because I think, when I talk about energy and trauma and stuff with my clients, I just think we don't recognize how much those little t things that happen throughout our lives actually impact us on an energetic level. And when we start to kind of pull back the layers and these little things come out, that's such a perfect illustration. You don't have to be, abducted or assaulted as a kid to have these things imprinted on you. It's little things like that was still in her energetic body. I think that's super powerful for us to understand how trauma affects us on an energy. Big T, little t, whatever it is. Like, that's wild.
%. Yeah. I try to explain this to certain clients and I'm like, trauma doesn't mean you were beaten, right? Trauma could be that you got, because sometimes like school show up or child, it's like, you got kicked down and told that you were fat when you were first grade and your whole life, suddenly started, imprinting, or that you weren't good enough. In middle school, when you did a project grade, it doesn't have to be big. So, and it's, a lot of times you can't remember it. That's also the thing with trauma.
Yes, exactly.
Like you
We
forget.
push it back. Yeah.
It's a safety
right.
mechanism of our body. But I actually had another interesting thing with a bee sting. It's only come up really 2 or 3 times, but they were both back-to-back clients, which I thought was interesting.
It's funny.
But like the specific one did get beaten by her dad. I just put, like in my report, I was writing it, and I just put bee sting ? Like, why is, like, this came up, want to talk about it? And she was like, couldn't really think about it. She's like, oh, well, my dad got stung last year on his face and that hurt. I was like, no. I was like, is there anything else? And she remembered when she was, middle school age, she goes, oh, I got stung by a bee and I yelled super loud because it hurt. And that was the first time that my mom beat me and be quiet. And that I can't yell like that. And she was repetitively beat after that. But that was the first moment she got stung by that bee. And that was like the cat. And I was like, interesting.
Holy cow.
And so she has a lot going on with her body, with her gut health, her immune system, stuff like that. And I was like, this in some ways playing a role, So yeah, it's just fascinating, stuff you never pick up on.
Right, for sure. For sure. Well, and like you said, about like talking through it and not just sitting report, which I feel like it's the same with labs too, because I feel like this is, what a lot of doctors and practitioners do. It's like they'll give you the labs and it's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like if they're not going over to explain it to you. I think it's the same thing with this, but like for you in your instance, like these women that you were just talking about, they probably would have never come to the conclusion if you haven't kept prompting them with more and more questions. Like that memory wouldn't have come forward and they wouldn't have been able to clear those things out. And I think like whether you're doing talk therapy or you're talking things out with a person who's not a therapist, like we're not licensed therapists here. Yeah, but I think that it's important to be said to have someone to hold space for that. Because that's really what it is. I mean, that's the point of talk therapy too, right? It's just to have someone to hold space, like a safe space to be able to start to pull these things out. And so I do think that's crucial. And I think that's an important piece of it and just being able to talk through it. And because sometimes that is all it takes. Like sometimes it takes more than that, but sometimes just bringing it out in the open and having a safe space to talk about it and to feel it, that it's just completing that emotional process that never got a chance to complete itself. Because that's all trauma is, right? It's like you stop the emotional response and then it gets stuck in your body. So if you just have that safe space to complete that emotional response or whatever it is, with things like you bring out these pieces that triggers like, oh yeah, this thing, like I think that's so crucial for the healing process.
It is. And, even in the bioenergetics world, I see people just handing off the pages and pages and pages of reports that don't make any sense, really. Sure. It's very complex. You think you're dying if you don't know what you're reading because all of this is showing up, and it's like, but it's even if it's normal labs, even if it's functional labs, it's like you need to understand the person. And and so often, even with bioenergetics, the way that we do it is so complex. Like even the reports I make for my clients are 15 pages, wow. And I'm pulling from, if I were to print out reports and things like that, it would be like 20, 30 pages. But the root of so many people's health issues is overwhelm. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, how do you also, and this is also up to the practitioner, and there's people that are just more blessed with this ability than others, let's shoot it straight, to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
And to understand like, hey, I'm gonna take this slow. This is, what we're doing. Because otherwise people feel like, oh my God, I'm screwed. There's so many things wrong with me.
Yes. Too much. Where do I start? Now I'm really screwed because I don't know where to start and how to,
Yes. And then they feel like it's kind of a hit or miss. Like people either feel like, oh my God, thank God I have answers. This is amazing. Move forward. Or like, oh my God, I'm so messed up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's just like telling the person, meeting them where they're at, and also just like guiding them and also understanding when you're on the other side, like picking up on cues, like, are they getting overwhelmed? Are they understanding what's going on? And do they also understand that this is a beautiful thing, that we have answers and you'll move through it, that, your body's not broken. It just needs the right information.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, I love bioenergetics, is it is feeding your body the information that your body is asking for and giving it the specific frequency that it needs. And that's what I tell people too, like even if we go through all of the things and there's a bunch of things to move through, it's like, and we have a game plan moving forward.
That's right.
Right? It's not
That's
just
right.
info, and it's not just a pill I'm going to throw at you.
Yes.
Beautiful information, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love that. That's so good. This is so fascinating. Like, I'm going to have to like dive into this myself even more because this is so fascinating to me. And I love this work that you're doing. And I love that you are helping people go like just that, that few layers deeper to really get to the bottom of things. And it's such powerful work. I do have one more question that I want to ask you. But before I ask you that, can you let everybody know where they can find out more about you and what you're doing? And if they want to reach out to you to do some of this work with you?
yeah. So if you're interested in bioenergetics, so we merge bioenergetics. We do bioenergetic scanning, but we also merge the functional health world as well, which is something very, very unique. So we do functional nutrition. We can do labs as well. We'll read your labs and do all of that habit work and the nutrition work with bioenergetics to make it even more powerful. And so you can find more on my website, which is www.thewellnessparadigm.com. That's also the name of my podcast. It's the name of my company. But you can find more information. And usually I tell people go and scroll on the main page and then the frequently asked questions page because bioenergetics there's always questions. There's always a lot of questions on that.
Yeah.
Or my Instagram, Shannon.Salge, Salge. I have a Facebook as well. I'm pretty active in a free Facebook community as well. So those are probably the best places to find me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Of course, I'll have the links to all that in the show notes. So you can go check it out and give Shannon a follow and go check out all the stuff she's doing with the bioenergetics. The last question I want to ask you, the question I ask everybody, what do you think is the most important thing you can do to live with purpose?
Find ways to sit in silence and actually ask yourself that question because you're not going to find it in the mumbo jumbo of it every day. Purpose is so unique person to person, and what people think is their purpose and what actually is their soul purpose is different, but you have to tune out the noise to figure that out. And so I think learning that it's okay to slow down, learning that there's beauty in the silence and in the slowness. That's where you really find out kind of where, what you want to do. That's where you heal, on a physical level, but that's also where you heal on an emotional level. And I think that's where people find out what really serves them and what doesn't.
I love that. And that's a tough one for people. The silence part, that's a tough one. So
Yes, I was one of them.
Yeah. I've been there too. Yeah. I love that answer, though. It is. It really can be completely life-changing, though. So thank you. I love that answer. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for hanging out with us today. This is so good. And I know you're going to get some people reaching out to learn more about this work. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Ta-da.